Welcome, everyone. Tonight is
Welcome.
welcome. Tonight is January 25th, 2023. My name is Anelda Attaway, also known as Jazzy Kitty. I'm the CEO and publisher of Jazzy Kitty Publications. And we are here tonight for a book discussion for Mark Wrobel, 5 titles which are available worldwide and on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. Before we begin, I want to welcome our illustrator, photographer, and book cover designer, Leroy Grayson.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, and want to welcome Carl. I don't want to mess up your last name. Is it Arterio?
Arcaro.
Arcaro. Okay, I knew I was going to get it wrong.
All right.
We want to discuss the 5 titles we're talking about tonight is Progressive, Credentialism versus Ageism, The American Holocaust, Start of the Coming Civil War, Unknown Secrets of the World War II, The Fall of the American Empire. And all these books was published back in 2020 and 2021. Let's learn a little bit about Mark. Mark resides in Wilmington, Delaware, and was born with a disability, but he doesn't allow that to stop him from doing anything he wants to do. Mark was raised by his father, Roman Wrobel, who was a dedicated single parent who was always a great encourager. Mark grew up in a communist system, and due to his disability, our country will not let him attend school with the regular kids.
In Poland, I was not allowed to attend school with regular kids.
Yeah, yes, right. You was not allowed to attend school with regular kids. That's right. When Mark was about 10 years old, he came to the United States, which he knew it was the land of opportunity. Therefore, he took full advantage of it and got a good education. All right. From 1989 until 1993, he attended St. Thomas, the Apostle School, which is a Catholic school located in Wilmington, Delaware. In 1993, he attended Wilmington High School and graduated in 1998 with a high school.
97.
Oh, okay, so it's 98 in your book.
No, not in 97.
That's okay. We can fix that too.
Right, that's okay.
A high school diploma. In 2002, he attended Delaware Tech Community College to attend their web designer certificate program, which he successfully completed. Mark continued his education in 2008 at Strayer University, studying information systems and homeland security. He graduated from Strayer in 2012 with an associate's degree. In 2018, he attended Strayer University again to obtain his Bachelor of Science degree in Information Systems and Homeland Security Management and graduated in 2020. Mark is very proud of his accomplishments because he was told that it was impossible and that he couldn't do it. Mark is currently employed with the United States Coast Guard in communications. He began working for the Coast Guard in 2012. Thus far, he has received multiple awards and accolades for his dedication to service. Mark loves to learn, excel, and try new things. In 2007, he decided to try skydiving. And with the help of an instructor, he jumped 18,000 feet. There was an article published about this amazing jump in the News Journal. In the future, Mark wants to go back to school to obtain his master's and doctoral degree. Mark always had the dream of becoming a published author. With his father's support, he has achieved it 5 times. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn the forum over to Arthur Mark Wrobel.
What I like to say, first of all, I would like to thank Miss Anelda Hathaway and Jesse Kitty Publications for publishing my books. I am especially grateful to Miss Hathaway for letting me publish one of my more controversial books, The American Holocaust, because I want to mention to the audience that this book, I had a script for this book. I hid it for many years because I didn't know how the public was going to react to this particular book. My other book that I published besides this one is Progressive Credentialism. And in that particular book, I do criticize the educational system here in America, because what they did to me is because I have a disability, so I did learn a little bit slower, and that's okay. I mean, nobody's perfect. You're different from me. Everybody's different. Everybody learns in the same pace. So what they did to me was they put me in special education, but that wasn't bad enough. They said that I will never achieve a college degree, that I'll be nothing and a nobody. So at that time, I felt pretty bad about it. And in that book, when we talk about progressive credentialism, it's just okay. Here's how progressive credentialism works. You have, in order for you to get a job in this day and age, they make you jump through so many hoops, and then they'll make you, for example, nowadays, in order to get a job, you probably have to get, if you want to be a janitor, you probably will have to get a degree in sweeping. But see, the problem, when we talk about progressive credentialism versus ageism part, I mean, the ageism part, it's the most disgusting thing here, because we're going to discuss that a little bit, if I may. The ageism part is because when it comes to the treatment of the elderly, it's very, I'm not going to say, well, it's just, let's just put it this way, it's not very nice. Because Carl, to his credit, he knows what I'm talking about. I remember when Carl drove me to the hospital because it was COVID at that time, and my dad, he fell in Christiana Hospital and broke his hip. So Carl drove me up there to let him see him, and he said, and the doctor told us on the phone. You remember this, Carl? I believe. Yeah. You remember this, when he said, well, we're not going to do, if we do the surgery, it's better to put him in a coma. We'll put him in a coma, and then, because he said the surgery is not worth it and all that stuff. So we went through that. But see, the poor man survived the surgery. And even with hospice care, it wasn't even that great. So when it comes to ageism itself, when we talk about progressive credentialism versus ageism, the ageism part of it, I mean, it wasn't the it's not what it should have been. Let's put it that way. And I did criticize and we all know why this happened. Like they said, we'll put your dad in a coma, blah, blah, blah. We all know why, because of what I mentioned in my progressive credentialism versus ageism book. I mentioned the Obamacare in there, I believe, and I mentioned it in several of my books. And it's because of Obama. It's like because it would cost them too much money, so to speak. So that, and when it comes to what do you call credentialism in this country, on the other part of it is credentialism too, because we're talking about progressive credentialism versus ageism. In that particular book, I also, because I mean, they're going to make you jump through so many hoops. That's not enough. You get your degree, you get all this stuff taken care of, But what happens to you then is like because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and here's what it says, because you can look this up yourself in my book on progressive credentialism. It says a company, if they want to hire a person with a disability, it's okay, but in order to provide them accommodations for a person with a disability, it cannot cause an undue hardship for a company. So right there, you're as a person with a disability, you're already excluded. So that's about it. Now, and then because this whole thing, progressive credentialism versus ageism and the American Holocaust and all that stuff, it talks about one thing. It talks about the whole New World Order and the global governance. And in this particular book, I believe I mention an incident that happened in 1967, which was the attack on USS Liberty. Mind you, I came to the documentation about that spy ship, the radio listening ship. I came to it by accident because I got into computers, and then I started to look around for things, and in 1967, unfortunately, the state of Israel has attacked United States of America, and they did sink that ship. But where the crime happened is when these crewmen of the USS Liberty try to jump off the ship and try to get into their lifeboats. The Israelis shut up their lifeboats as well. So, and does anyone have any questions so far?
No, you're doing a great job explaining it.
Now, in my book, I also discuss censorship in America, and this beginning, the censorship in America was already in the works since before 9/11, but after 9/11, the censorship got into high gear. Because you see, what this country is, part of the New World Order is the Communist Party USA that I do mention in my book, The American Holocaust. Because as you know, in the 1950s, like after 1945, a lot of the communist people came to America, and they infiltrated our government, such as the media, all those other things, and that's how censorship has started. Because as I quote something from my book here. Yes. In chapter 1, I said, everyone in America thinks that the censorship of our media started in 2001 with this passage of the Patriot Act of 9/11. Those people could not be more wrong. The censorship began in the 1950s. Here's how it started. After World War II, those Holocaust victims came to the United States. Don't get me wrong, the people did suffer in the concentration camp. If anyone accuses me of being a Holocaust denier, then they are very wrong. But with those people came the Communist Party USA and the whole 1960s movement and all that. And that's how the censorship in this country started. And does anyone want to add anything?
No, you're doing great.
And then in this book, I go see it's like this. Progressive credentialism talks about how the New World Order has affected the education system. The American Holocaust will take you a step further and deeper, and it will go into how this new world order is being controlled, and then the start of the coming Civil War itself. I actually took it a little further, because unfortunately, in order for our country to survive, there will be a civil war sooner or later. And here's why it's going to happen. Because this is then from this book I go into my other book called The Fall of the American Empire. Because how do we know? Why do I promote my book, The Fall of the American Empire, and how does all these books tie into this? They tie into this because we all know when the Soviets pulled out of Afghanistan in the late 80s, then the whole Soviet Union has collapsed on itself, because it affected their economy, all those other things. So when it comes to the fall of the American Empire, it's the same fate will await America, because what they're doing now, it's economically unsustainable, because all these programs such as food stamps, such as all those aid programs that's supposed to help people, that's unsustainable. Plus this country's debt itself, it's already skyrocketing. So it's only a matter of time now before we will start to see economic collapse. Now I admit, in my progressive credentialism versus ageism, I complained about the education system and everything else. I'm gonna lead you to this book. It's called The Unknown Secrets of World War II. Now, when it comes to the American education, I don't think the folks that are in grade school or high school or even college, when it comes to history of World War II, I don't think they got the whole picture. For example, let me give you an example. That's why I wrote this book, because a lot of people can sure complain about the education system doesn't work, but like, what can you do about it? Well, since I like history, I like the ancient lands and all that other things, and so I've got into the research of this book called Unknown Secrets of World War II. Now, did these children, were they ever taught in their social studies class that Adolf Hitler's real name is not Adolf Hitler at all? His real name is Adolf Schicklgruber. His father's name was Alois Schicklgruber, and his mother was Clara Schicklgruber. Did anybody bother to teach those kids that? I don't think so, because that's understandable, because your education system, it is not there to educate you. It is there to indoctrinate you. Now, on here, you see a picture of a Buddha with a swastika on it. But did those people know that where did the actual swastika come from? They say it is a symbol of hate. Well, excuse me, it is a symbol of hate, but it's not really, because it's the symbol. If somebody misuses a certain symbol, then I don't think that the symbol is a bad symbol, because this particular symbol of the swastika, it's evident in the Tibetan and Shinto. It's in Buddhism, Hinduism, and it's also evident in Japanese religion of Shintoism. So swastika.
Too.
What?
It was also a Roman symbol too.
Exactly. They were all part of the Roman symbol too, and so was the eagle. Because as we can even watch the movie Gladiator, you can see the symbolism with the Russell Crowe. You can even see the Roman eagle, the other thing, and the other thing I wrote in that book. There, like for example, there were over 1,500 soldiers of Jewish descent that served in Hitler's army. One of them was, I believe, let me look up. Let me look up. Oh yeah, there are a lot of. That's Mr. Schickelgruber. Okay, there we go. The two most prominent German Nazis of Jewish descent is Erich von Manstein, who was the architect of the invasion of Stalingrad. For example, the other chief was Reinhard Heydrich. His mother and father were Jewish, and even what's his name, Adolf Eichmann himself. He even spoke Hebrew. He was able to speak Hebrew, and from what I've gathered, all the information from what I know, that there's a possibility that his mother and father were Jewish. And when it comes to reality of the Schickelgruber family, which is Hitler's family, that particular family, from what I know and what I did research in this book, is his grandmother and his parents were Jewish as well. And not only soldiers of Jewish descent served in Hitler's army, but there were black soldiers from Eritrea and Ethiopia. There were a lot of black soldiers from Egypt. Matter of fact, as we all know, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the president of Egypt, was trained, and I did mention him in this book, Arthur Skorzeny, and because a lot of those ex-German Nazis came to the countries like after the war. They went to Egypt, they went to other places, and a lot of people say, like I mentioned, the swastika symbols, and there were a lot of different races that served in Hitler's army. For example, there were soldiers of Indian descent, the White Tigers. They were part of Hitler's army.
Didn't the Ukrainians guard the death camps too?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. Speaking of Ukrainians, there were also part of. See, every country, and I'm continuing to do research on this book from time to time, and from what I can gather is like Ukraine. Every nationality, Italian, Yugoslavian, every nationality had their own SS divisions. The Muslims, everybody had a division except for Poland. But every other race and nation did have people in the service of the German army. Now, when you see the SS runes on these are the letters are they're not they're what we call SS runes, and Adolf Hitler took the symbols from a lot of those symbols, like the numeric system, the runes. He took those from the ancient Slavic ancient Slavic traditions, because you know that Europe back in the ancient days were not always Christian either. They were what we call pagans. Like, for example, the SS runes are nothing more than the bolt of lightning. They're the symbol of the god Thor, which is Thor is the god of, according to the Slavic ancient tradition, it's the god of thunder and lightning.
Very interesting.
And even like for example, because
Well, you're talking about the symbols, what the Ukrainian soldiers now are wearing the symbol that they wore when they guarded the death camps, and their white national and their white national.
Absolutely, it's
Yeah,
because
they're white supremacists.
right, but the problem is the reason I decided to publish. See, I wasn't even going to touch this book because when my father was living, he said, "Oh no, you better not touch this topic because you're going to get yourself in trouble." And you know me, we sat at a table, we had a long talk, long discussions. I mean, my home itself, when my father was alive, it was no topics were off the table, and there was no taboo topic to discuss. And before I published this. Before I published this book, I had a long discussion with my dad. I said, he was like, "You're gonna do what you're gonna do," and he said, "Okay, go ahead." He said, "Just be careful what you do." And so I actually published the book, and as we all know, like a lot of those scientists, like Hans, I mentioned in my book, this was of World War II, Hans Kammler. He was the researcher of and I do mention the bell. And they did what happened with the operation of Paperclip. A lot of those Nazi scientists, like Dr. von Braun, all of them, they came to America. And because what people do not know, the reason I published this book, that's why I called it The Unknown Secrets of World War II, because a lot of people are not aware of. See, they only understand World War II, 1939, 1945, we won the war, General Patton, this, that, but they actually miss the important parts that I do mention in this book. And they're just as important. If you're going to teach about World War II, I think it would be very good for people to actually get to know this part of the World War II that nobody is speaking about in a large what do you put? I can't say, find the words. Maybe somebody can help me out. In a large spectrum of this. So that's why, and to be honest with you, The Unknown Secrets of World War II is also one of my favorite books. I'm very proud of all of my books, but I am proud of my book. All of my books, but The Unknown Secrets of World War II and The American Holocaust are one of my best works. Not to mention Progressive Credentialism, but these books are basically my pride and joy. And as you mentioned, the Ukrainians still are wearing they are wearing those symbols. You are correct about that. And so here it comes. If I may, can I, Ms. Anelli, can I bring some current events to the front, since Mr. Arcaro has mentioned it? So I don't know. Is Mr. Putin right when he says that we have to denazify Ukraine? I mean, I'm just asking a question here. Is he right or wrong? Now, we're going to get into this book a little bit. Start of the Coming Civil War itself. You know, and I admit, The thing is, I believe I did take off on the Black community a little bit. I believe in this I did this in this particular book. And the reason is because you hear on TV, a lot of them, they say that, oh, Black community doesn't have role models to follow. And I mentioned in that book, I said, yes, you do. Yes, they do. For example, Catherine Global, she was one of the NASA engineers. She was the one who was responsible for calculating the trajectory of the rockets, but unfortunately, of our rocket ships back in the 1960s, when they would have if they take off, where they were supposed to land. So she was one of the people who were responsible for so that the ships can land safely, so that the spaceships like Mercury 7, I believe, had a place to land and make sure it was safe and mathematically possible, so it wouldn't burn up in the atmosphere.
Wow.
But like I said, because it's not usually the kid's fault or the thing, but that's kind of because the unfortunately, when I mentioned censorship in my book of the American Holocaust, the censorship is even gets to your classrooms, because they will not, for example, in a public school, they will not teach about Miss Catherine Global, who has done a lot for the NASA program, and she wasn't the only one who did. There was a group of there was a whole group of those ladies who actually helped her with trajectory. They actually worked in like computer labs and all those other things. But unfortunately, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to say it, but your education system is being censored, because instead of how do you put it? Instead of making you smarter, your education system is basically dumbing you down.
Certain things you don't want us to know.
Yes, and see that's what I would consider my work with progressive credentialism and versus ageism, Start of the Coming Civil War, and all my other books. Very valuable, because I would consider my books an educational resource. So like, for example, if something doesn't sound right in school, if they don't teach you in school, you can probably look it up in my book. And with my books, I also put in my reference material where I get the information from, so that this information is not just made. It's not made up. I mean, you've been with me, Miss Nelda, for a long time, and before I published these kind of books, I looked up the information before I put it in the book, and that's why these books are invaluable as scholarship.
Wow. Are you planning on doing more projects, Mark?
Oh, as a matter of fact, I'm working on one as we speak. I'm working on a book. It's called Operation The Wrath of Saladin. This is just a fiction book. This is just a fiction book. Like, it does take place in the middle. It's kind of a spy thriller. It's a spy thriller. It does take place. It does take place in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, Mr. Carl Arcaro is one of the characters in my book, if I can mention that to him.
Did you know that, Carl?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, if I may. That book, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but Carl me and Christopher Betts, it's Carl, me, and my friend from the Coast Guard. We play a crew of a reconnaissance aircraft that's been placed on a spy mission into the Middle East. I'm not going to tell you any more about it. You're just going to have to read it for yourselves. And I'm also working on my other book. It's going to be called Faith, Religion, and the Bible. I'm also working on that. I'm going to start working on that project. I mean, it's going to be I bet you it's going to be a controversial book, but I do go into a variety of, I'm not going to spoil that one for you either, but it's going to be, trust me, it's going to be worth your time reading. I mean,
Are you talking about you guys being actors?
What? No, well, no, the other book, The Operation of Saladin itself, that book, because I'm the kind of guy that, yes, I could write political books, and that's fine. But what I don't want to be is, I don't want to be just doing political books all the time, because it gets boring after a while, and it would not make much sense. Like Miss Imelda said, that there's a gentleman that she has that he only writes urban fiction, I believe. That's okay, and that's okay. That's okay. But what I want to do is get into a variety of things. I like doing political books, but I also want to get. I got into political books. I got into the Unknown Secrets of World War II. It's kind of it's not a political book per se, but it goes into so it's kind of a history book type of thing, and I want to be able to write on a variety of different subjects. I don't see, how can I put this so we can all understand? I don't have what we call one-track mind. I like, if I write a book, if I start writing books, I would want to write a variety of different books, not just stick to one topic. Because you can do one topic over and over again, and it's not going to make much sense. What I like to do is just give my readers a variety of subjects, because some people may not be interested in politics. Maybe somebody does like, for example, to read a spy novel once in a while. Or somebody might want to read a book under a title of the other faith, religion, and the Bible. See, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give, and I also want see, I am not a professional writer. Never was one. But the way I got into writing was, it was like when I was in college, the professors liked my my paper, how I wrote my papers, and they were very good. And then after I went into the Coast Guard, somebody noticed that I could write good papers and all that stuff, fill out documents and all that stuff. So somebody said to me, you should write a book. And I just decided to take him up on his advice, and that's how I got into writing. I mean, writing was not my first profession, but I figured out I was good at it, and I come up with some. If I come up with good, I could come up with some good topics. I'm sure that I could. Have a go at this career, and I could have a pretty lucrative. I think I could have a pretty lucrative career doing this.
That's good. That's the first step. Belief and faith in yourself.
Now there you go. You said it right. One of my topics that I'm going to cover in my book, faith, which is believing in yourself that you can do it. Because for a long time, my dad and I had this discussion. Oh, I was going to write a book. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. But then when I published my first one. Progressive Credentialism versus Ageism, that's actually that book itself motivated me to write more.
Wow.
And I can understand some of my books are controversial. They do cover kind of topics off the realm, off the beat track. But that's the way I am. I am a very controversial figure, and you know this, Coral, better than me. That you can talk with me about different topics, and sometimes you will not understand it. Until I explain them, and so yeah, that's how it is.
Well,
Yeah.
I published the books, and I know it's in effect a good read. Like he said, some of it's controversial, political, but he has the facts to back it up. That's what made me want to follow up and be a publisher of his books, because we had discussions before we even published the book, and he gave me an idea of what the book was about, and he said that no one else would publish the book, no one else would touch it. And
And to be honest with you, like I said, the American Holocaust. I wrote this book while when I way before when I was back in the service, even way back than that. I just wrote the thing, and I was walking from publisher to publisher, and one of them told me, he looked at my script. And this is true. He looked at my script, read it. He said, "Well, the book's good, but I am not touching it. I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. I don't want the cops near my house. I don't want them doing anything to me." He said, "Now take your script and get out of here." Because look, I can understand why. And that was the book that caused more problems with the American Holocaust. This is my most valuable book, because I mean, to be honest with you, no publisher would have. See, I went to Barnes and Noble publishers, all these other publishers in this, and nobody would want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. They either told me go away, or they told me that this is going to cause me problems, because they say it's too hot. This is the topics that we're not going to touch because it's going to cause problems. So to be honest with you, I hid the script for the American Holocaust. I hid that script for years.
wow.
It was I put it under a lock and key, because even my dad, when we discussed it with my dad, God rest his soul, he said, because you all remember, see, he even said it, that if he was even afraid of this book, of the American Holocaust, because he said that they're going to find my body in a dumpster because of this. Because I mean, because I'm in this book, I'm touching topics that they are well, I'm going to read you some of them that I touched. Hold on. Yeah, it says the beginning of censorship. Judeo-communists in America, one world government, gun control of the European Union, and who's behind it. And then I do mention the USSR liberty in this book. And see, that's why no publisher would dare go near me. When my dad, when I contacted Miss Imelda Hathaway to help me publish the book Progressive Credentialism versus Ageism, and I told her I had this script. And I told her that this one, I said, you better read it first to tell me what you think, because this is I go into a great detail in this book, because in this book I do name names, I do names who's doing what. And to be honest with you, I do not know. I think it was by God's grace, when my dad was still living, I received an invitation, whether we called this a Bilderberg meeting or I'm not sure what it was, but we received an invitation where I got a chance to actually meet those people who are behind the New World Order, global governance, et cetera, et cetera. So and then to be honest with you, I was scared to publish this book. I was scared to publish Progressive Credentialism versus Ageism in itself, but I was more scared to publish the American Holocaust, because of course, the Progressive Credentialism was controversial enough, but the other book, Carl, to be honest with you, Mr. Arcaro, Carl, he has read my book, Progressive Credentialism versus Ageism himself. So what do you think of that book, Carl?
It's a great book. I liked it. I learned a lot.
And you know what I touched in there, that I did touched about Obamacare and all those other topics that most people are even afraid to talk about, or they don't even know what to say. So this book, the American Holocaust, was, when I published this book, before I even had discussions with Miss, and before we did this kind of Zoom meeting type of thing, when I published this book and it came out, my father bought it. My dad just hit that book in the thing, and then every time we get into his car, my dad used to leave the door open. We used to get in, fasten our seatbelt, and then my dad would start the car, because we were afraid. That somebody, might do, and every time my dad used to walk out, he said, don't walk out like, when my dad walked out of the house, when we would go somewhere, my dad would never leave he said, don't you ever leave my side, and my dad used to walk me to his car. He got me, and he said, don't close the door. He got into the other side and started up the car with the open door, because that book was that controversial.
Meeting. Get away.
Controversial sells, don't it, Mr. Grayson? Controversial book, they sell. That's why
They do sell.
trying to get Mark promoted out there, because a lot of people does not know about these reads, and they're going to be very impressed and very, like Carl said, learn a lot.
And then because one of the and I can understand why my dad was afraid for my life, and I understand why, because I actually mentioned for example, in my book, I mentioned actual names of people. In this particular book, the start of the Coming Civil War, I do mention the names who's actually behind the whole New World Order thing, and all these things. So I did name names, and that's why my father was even. So listen, my father was even afraid to get in the car with me to go somewhere. And like when we would be driving, he'd be looking over his shoulder to make sure nobody would follow us or anything, because I can understand that my topics are controversial, and I am a very controversial individual. But you know that I do possess a wealth of knowledge. I mean, anybody can write a book like this, but it's the wealth of knowledge that I possess behind it. It's not about the book. It's the knowledge behind those books that I put into those books. And that's the key.
Yes, they're very educational.
So, does anybody have any questions?
No, you explain your situation for me. Well, I've read the book, so that's probably why I don't have many questions. But what about Mr. Grace? Do you have anything?
I haven't read it. I would love to read that. I would love to read the book. It sounds really like he should probably start to work on a short film, about those topics and things like that. And be careful.
And to be honest with you, I love Carl. He's a good friend of mine and all this other thing. But I bet you from time to time he's even afraid to kind of ride in the car with me because
Mark, you should call him the TikTok books, because you put like 500 pages into like 25, 30, whatever, how many pages there are, you shorten the book. Yeah. So it's not a long read. It's a short read,
Yes. Most of my political books are short read because, people they don't have the attention span these days to read a 30, 40, 50, 100-page book.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I could write a 100-page book, but unfortunately, the American people and people in general do not have the attention span to actually read a long novel. You know that.
That's why I said video, because people are visual.
Yes.
Instead of reading a long book or novel or something like that, they're very visual. So if you start to put it into video where people could see and also learn, it sounds like you have a lot to offer, Mark.
And see, because to be honest with you, here's who I really am. Yes, I went to high school. Yes, I went to college. I achieved my bachelor's degree, and I did spend 20 years in the United States Coast Guard because I'm I'm part of the Coast Guard Reserve. So I've got, and it was, to be honest with you, it was like this. One day, the two dudes showed up at my office with that invitation when they invited me and my father to. Well, they didn't invite my father, but they said, here's the two invitations you can bring with you, whoever you want. So I did meet David Rockefeller. I met the ambassador, the Pakistani ambassador to the United States. I actually met all these people behind the throne. I don't know. I don't know whether it was under Allah's grace or God's grace or whatever you want to call you God. That's okay. But I had a chance to actually meet, to sit at the same table, and to actually to talk to these people.
Mark, he's right. You should do some YouTube videos.
Right.
Books and
this is the way I wanted to. That's why I wanted to do this, to promote. And we would what we're going to do, I don't know if you're able to, because I will need a car for this one. What I would like to do is like go to Washington D.C. with you, or we could take a trip to New York, to the United Nations, and actually video, maybe to go to those. Maybe what we'll try to do is, like, if you're able, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, you decide whatever you want to do. If you have children, I understand. Maybe we ought to put it like an expedition to the Bilderberg groups where they meet, or something like that. I think that would be great, because this gentleman's right. People people are more visually than how do you put it, than readable. How do you put it, Mr. Nelson? Maybe you can help me out and chime in here. What is it, visual? And I know we have visual and audio, but what do you call the reading part of it? Like if you read a book, what's the word? I got a mental block now.
Escaped me.
Yeah, it escaped me too. But like he's right. We should do like more videos from the like, so we can actually show show the people.
Yeah, be an author, I guess. You just said you read, write a writer or author.
Yeah, like but also I am gonna continue to write my books and all that. But I think to take a trip. To take a trip and actually go into those places like the maybe like the like when we talked about the New World Order, and I did mention the United, like in my American Holocaust, I mentioned that the United Nations wants to disarm people. Maybe we're not going to be able to talk to anybody, but maybe show the people the places where. See, because let's put it this way: your decisions about your country and about your lives are no longer made in your capitals. Can we agree on that? They're not made. They're not there because your congressmen, your world leaders are being influenced by people like I mentioned in the book, George Soros, if that's okay, if I can mention it, or any of those so-called let's put it this way, globalists. Okay, can you erase that word, George Soros? We can call them globalists for that, as for that, so we can get past the censors. But to be honest with you, that's why I decided to write these kind of books in the first place, because I think that the humanity needs to know about these things. And like I said, a lot of people complain about the education system sucks. Education is not good. What the heck? Then what are you doing to improve the education system? And in my opinion, when I wrote the book, The Unknown Secrets of World War II, I think I gave more materials for like you university students, for like if somebody wants to further his knowledge, he can do this by this particular book of The Unknown Secrets of World War II. Now, I do want to get back to this Unknown Secrets of World War II, because that's one of my topics. Now, there's a topic of Aryans. Is the Aryan myth a fiction or a fact? Well, to be honest with you, the Aryan myth is a fact. And the reason I say that, because I did mention in my book, the Unknown Secrets of World War II, I did mention that those people do exist. They and this is what the Aryans because the Aryans they're people from Pakistan, Afghanistan, and they travel through India, and some of them do live in Tibet, and even the ancient Aryans, not aliens, but Aryans, as you can see in this particular picture, I would say they were testing nuclear weapons, because back in those days, this is the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, where I showed the ruins here. And when you go into Mohenjo-Daro itself, if you go in there with the Geiger counter, the radiation levels, from what I read, the radiation on the Geiger counter, they're off the charts. So I mean, is it safe to say that our ancient ancestors had the capability of producing nuclear power, nuclear energy? I would say yes. I would have to say yes, because, I mean, how can you, because if you know anything about nuclear reaction, nuclear physics, or anything at all, I mean, of course, the radiation levels, like for example, if a radiation levels can last for like 10 or 20 years, then they go away. But when you go into the ancient city of Mohenjo-daro that I do mention when I try to explain to you guys about the ancient Aryan myth, myth, fiction or myth, I would say that that the Aryans did have the capability or the technology to produce nuclear power.
Then you would have to look at your source of information.
Because
Mark,
I mean,
Mark, is that the place where you go into and it's like you're deathly sick if you go to a certain area, like you can't go really in there? Is that
right?
what you're about? Is that the area?
Right. It's called Mohenjo-daro. There's like because when people go in there with their with the Geiger, or like they go in there with the people used to go in there with the Geiger count, and the radiation levels were in Mohenjo-daro, which that city is located in Pakistan. The Geiger counters were going beep beep beep. I mean, they were really loud, and people were throwing up, and so. People were throwing up, and their hair started to fall out. So, there has to be something to this.
I got you. Yeah, I heard of that. Heard of some place like that. Yeah.
So that's what I said. See, the ancient people had technology that we cannot practically duplicate, but. Back to this topic: are the Aryans myth or a fact? I would say they are a fact. Because those descendants of the Aryan race, they still live. They live through Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, all the way. They live all the way up. They live all the way up to the Tibetan mountains.
Wow.
What would make you think that it's a fact, Mark?
Because the like for example, they're always in they might go through Iran because you see, because let me tell you, I mean, we're not going to say that this is an Aryan person or this is an Aryan person or that is
right.
But what I'm saying is those people, those Aryans had children, and then these children had children. So their descendants are still living in Afghanistan, places like Afghanistan, Tibet. I mean, because to be honest with you, there's many things in the world that we cannot explain. And to be honest with you, I think the Aryan race is, I mean, they're for example, today, people in Afghanistan, they live in poverty, but they are the descendants of the ancient Aryan people. We all have our ancestors. Like the Egyptians have ancestors. So, like I said, this isn't some sort of theory, but the Aryan race does exist. But today's Aryans are not as technical advanced, because most of them, like people in Afghanistan, they live in poverty. People in the Tibetan mountains, they live in poverty, but they are the descendants of those. See, how can I put this in a nice way? Like I said, the ancients had children, and then the other people had children, and then it just goes on and on. So,
do you think that there was nuclear usage centuries ago?
It had to be, especially nuclear reactors. There would have to be, because, and I will tell you what, now I'm going to get off this topic of my books for a minute, but I can prove it to you that the ancient Egyptians, when they were building the pyramids, I would say there's no, I mean, yes, what you read in your history books, I would say yes. In the history books, they say that they had all these people, pushing the logs, pushing the bricks to make the Egyptian pyramids. But here's the problem with the whole ballgame. When you look at a pyramid, those blocks that built those pyramids, they were so precisely cut. The only thing, in my opinion, now this is my opinion, folks, in my opinion, it had the cutting, the block, they might have pushed the blocks or whatever, but the cutting of the blocks would have to be had. The only piece of equipment that could do this is laser. And I believe that the Egyptians did possess the knowledge of power, electricity, and all that stuff. Because in my opinion, think about how many people you would need in Egypt, for example, to build all these pyramids. I mean, so they had
perfectly cut stone, right?
Right. And the only thing that can perfectly cut the stone, in my opinion, is a laser. And in order to run lasers and things like that, you would have to have power. And the only way to get power, in the Bible, it says that the ancient Israelites ate manna from heaven. No, it was a machine that was powered by the nuclear reactor that actually that made manna for them.
So you do believe that there's nuclear usage centuries ago?
Yes. I would have to, because from what do I believe it? No, I'm just examining evidence that are presented in front of me, and I'm coming to the conclusion that yes, it would have to be done, and Egyptians are a perfect example, because, like I said, cutting the stones for the pyramids, they were so perfectly cut that even a razor blade cannot fit between those blocks. So the only thing it could cut, like a precise cut like this, it would have to be a diamond saw, which you do need electricity to run that, or it would have to be a laser. So in order
I'm just saying because these are questions that people would be asking you if you was to write this.
Right.
People would be asking those questions.
Right, and I do believe that the only thing I believe in is that in order to power all these all these diamond saws and all these cutting equipment, you would need nuclear power. You would need nuclear power to do that.
Wow.
Because the electricity was the person who invented electricity was, I believe, the same person who invented the light bulb. But I believe that ancient Egyptians had electricity. They had this technology. The technology of nuclear power and power generation in general was there is a possibility, and there's a strong possibility that our ancestors did have this nuclear technology use. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So from the evidence that I can gather, I could say absolutely positively, yes, yes, nuclear power was used to power the tools and other things.
Okay, to get past those questions, I would say that would have to come from another species, alien species. That information.
And you would not be wrong. Absolutely, because they're saying, oh, they said that aliens built built the pyramids. In that case, I would say no. What the aliens did was they helped the Egyptians. They gave them the technology to actually, they gave them the technology to do it.
Well, they do have proof that that type of activity was going on, because even when you look inside the pyramids, the pictures of spaceships and things like that.
Right. So I mean, see that the thing is, what I see, that's why I like kind of writing these books like The Unknown Secrets of World War II on these, because what I did reveal to those people is it's like maybe people are too busy, they're running around and all this stuff, but what the purpose of my books is, like, look at this thing again. Because I mean, yes, there is technology. I bet you technology was used. I mean, what I can say is, like, I don't think that the ancient man was, he let's just can I put it this way? The ancient man was no dumb. Okay, they had to have help in order to build those. I mean, see, when I do agree with you that the aliens did not build those pyramids, what they did was they gave them the technology, and they said to the Egyptians, "You build it."
Yep, you're going to have points of reference points when those questions come about. If you're moving forward and a big network was inviting you to come on or something for an interview and things like that, your reference points are going to have to be on point.
Right. And
Mark, hey Mark, there
Yeah.
was a guy, his name was Ed Leedaskakelin or something. I can't pronounce his last name. And he used he created a coral castle that became an American popular culture. And he used, they say, like, earth magnetic energy. He did it all by himself. He lifted like multi-tons by himself.
Right. And I believe this technology was used in Egypt to lift. That's the next thing I want to talk about. These people, the Egyptians, maybe you're right, Carl. Maybe the
Right,
Egyptians.
It's an ancient knowledge.
Right.
To levitate blocks and stone. Yeah.
Yeah, the levitation, that technology was possible. There is a strong possibility that yes, it's possible to do that. Because think about it, how many people if they were doing the lifting of the pyramids and all these other things, how many people would be needed to move all these heavy blocks? However, the technology that is that helped them rotate and maybe lift those blocks or push those blocks. They had the levitation technology, and the levitation technology is not that difficult to achieve nowadays, because the monorail in the Disney World, if you've been there, it actually doesn't levitate, like, it doesn't fly, but it lifts. It uses small like magnetic things in their track that it lifts up the train a little bit, and it goes down the track. So that technology is out there.
Yes, I've been there. I know what you're talking about.
The levitation, all that stuff, the technology is after. But see, here's the thing: our government is not going to release this technology to the public like whammo, because what they are is they're afraid that people will, in my opinion, that people will not know what to do with it. But slowly and surely, the technology is going to get released. Whether we talk about levitation, when we talk about, see, this is the realm that we're going to get into. We're getting into is what we call is the ancient astronaut theory. But surely and slowly, that technology like levitation, all those technologies are gonna are going to be released to the public, but slowly.
Yeah. Yeah, you
It
have to,
sounds like a type of polarity to me.
Possible. I mean, it's possible. Anything is possible because, I mean, for example, nowadays, I mean, for example, you remember how they had the computers, the big computers, the big box. You had the box underneath. You had your mouse and all that. But today's computers are in the form of a laptop or even a tablet. And I bet you that technology is going to get so far. See, what I think is happening is we're experiencing, and may I say that I hope people will understand what I'm trying to say. Maybe we are experiencing a sort of renaissance in technology. We are rediscovering the technology of our ancient ancestors. Like for example, Carl mentioned levitation. Like for example, I could say laser cutting. This technology, all I'm saying is this technology has existed before. But what we are doing now in the 21st century, we are experiencing a sort of renaissance, and we are rediscovering of the technology of the ancients.
so we're leaving the dark ages and going into the Renaissance.
Well, if you want to call it Renaissance, yes, we are. What we are experiencing now is, when it comes to technology, we are experiencing a sort of Renaissance, like Leonardo da Vinci and all those were Renaissance painters. But we are experiencing our own form of Renaissance when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
But here's the whole caveat with this thing, with technology and everything else. We would have to be careful, and as educated people, we have to keep our, how can I put this? Keep the people in check, so this technology doesn't get misused. Like for example, because yes, the technology can be used to accomplish good, but it also can be used to how do you put it, to, I'm trying to think of a word. It can also be detrimental to the humans too. Because in my books, I also mention of chipping people. In Sweden, people are getting chipped. So what we have to be careful is, like, now the people in Sweden have the chip under their skin, where you can actually go to the door, scan, and the door opens. Or see, and here's the whole problem with this thing. Because if you have a chip in your body, what if the people that be getting mad at you and they turn off your chip? You're not, for example, you're not going to be, and if you have your credit card information, if you have your, I know I'm going off into the blue yonder sort of thing, but what if you have your credit card information? What if you have your gas money? What if you have every information on that particular chip, and then somebody in the gets mad at you and they just turn your chip off? Then you're not going to be able to feed yourself.
So in China, what do they call it? Social credit scores.
Bingo! Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. Yes, social, like China's doing now. Social credit scores. This and that. So yes, the technology is out there, and we should. So
us talking to you, Mark, and hanging out with you, we get credits taken away. So they can stop us from traveling. They're doing that in China now. They can stop. They can take money, everything. Yeah.
Right. So, like I said,
public transportation, allowed to leave the state or whatever. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That's what I'm saying. It's like, yes, technology is out there, and technology is great, and I'm the kind of guy that likes technology, and because I've been in it for 20 years. I'm also an engineer. I can build technology from scratch because I'm into like ham radio, radio waves. I do build antennas and all those other things. And all those wonderful things. But also, like I said, yes, technology is out there and technology is good. But what we have to be careful is to make sure that this technology doesn't turn on us. Like, for example, there are out there robots that you can build on your own. There's two ways to make a robot. There's the Arduino boards, which you can make robots with, and there's the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a mini computer that you can actually program and use it as a brain in front of, for that robot. Or you can use an Arduino board so that the robot would function. But like I said, the technology is good. The only thing is we got to watch out for is so this technology doesn't turn on us.
Yeah, Elon Musk is coming up with the chip, the brain chip. Yeah.
And like I told Miss Anelda, I'm going to continue to write my books, if that's okay with Miss Anelda, because I have the knowledge and the power in my brain. I could probably write book. I had a nice discussion with her on the phone. I said I could write books for 10, 20 years because there's so much knowledge in there, and I do love to venture into realms that people will not go into. And I mean that's see, because what I think is like there is a saying, I forgot who said this: knowledge is power, and if you have the knowledge, then you become more powerful, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why, and just because in some cases I believe that if you have the knowledge, you should share this knowledge with people. So that I mean, so with knowledge, yes, you should keep some knowledge to yourself. I can understand, but like, see, to me, knowledge is like a nice chocolate cake. Like I have a piece, you have a piece, and so I believe that the knowledge should be shared.
Right. Well, that's a good way to end this segment because it's about to cut off. I just want to ask for Carl and Mr. Grayson, do you have any comments about what Mark shared tonight?
I think it was really nice. I think, it could be really educational for a lot of people. I would like to read Mark's book. I'm also a technical person. I'm into computers and technology and things like that myself. I got over 30 years of experience of doing. I started to go into the realm of ham radios and things like that, but I just went a little and then I stopped. But I like to have the knowledge of technology and computers and things like that. I did computer repair and programming for a long time. So, I know exactly what you're talking about. And the thing is, when you talk about the nuclear theory from years ago, centuries ago, that could have been there. But what I was saying, not to step on any toes, you really have to have a good reference point. A place where you can prove what you're saying. Because people will be asking that question. When, why, and where.
And you're right, and Carl knows me for a very long time. We we talk. We sometimes go off the beaten path when it comes to discussion. We go off to a beaten path ourselves. Like for example, with him, sometimes I can hold discussions. I mean that, like for example, we got into this topic a couple years ago about reincarnation. I know that's a controversial topic in itself, and I'm not gonna go into that. But as I explained to him what it means, how it worked, then it's like when I talked to him, I saw a light like in his eye. Lined up. Oh, I know what he's talking about now. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah, it's a lot, theories. It would be good if you, like Carl and myself was saying, if you could start to do short takes and videos and things like that, even podcasts and things like that, and see what you can build from that. And then on the same note, that's promoting your material.
Yes.
We do have access to video and filmmakers and things like that.
Well,
So what I
I'm
would say is that, really think about that, to go that route so that you can promote your material and the stuff that you come up with.
okay. And I would like to say in closing, I am so grateful to the company Jazzy Kitty Publications that they actually had the courage and the fortitude to let me publish those particular books, because I can understand. I don't care what the other publishers think or do, but I know that I found as a writer, I found a home in Jersey Kitty Publications.
All right.
Yes, that was
Glad
good.
to have you.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything before we close out?
No, so I had a good time.
Oh,
So thanks. Nice meeting you too. And
nice
I
meeting
talked
you.
to you before, but it's nice meeting you also, and meet
Good to
everybody.
see you.
I had fun.
Yes. Nice meeting you too, Carl.
And
Mark's
thank you, Mr.
character.
And you're welcome. I
Mark's
want to
character.
wish you the best, Mark, in your endeavors, and know that you do have a home in Jazzy Kitty Publications, and we're looking forward to publishing your next book, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And like Mr. Grayson said, to get into some video. I even see podcasts. I don't know why. Your stuff is so interesting. I think people would love to hear it.
That's what I'm also thinking about. Podcasts and all those other things. Also, I'm gonna need help, because I did make an announcement on. Can we? I don't know. Okay. I'm gonna talk to you, but I need to stop recording. I will talk to you on the thing.
Okay.
Because okay, I want to talk. Carl can still hear, because I tried